So we have Obama back in power with a Democratic Senate, with a Republican House. It will wind up he accomplishes very little in his second term, but society is changing around him in significant ways. Uh, the social issues that he embraced seem to be becoming more popular, but the two big social issues that Obama had run on in 2012, same-sex marriage and immigration reform, politically move in very different directions in Obama's second term. Same-sex marriage moves in one direction, which is it becomes more popular, and opponents largely cease using it. You can see an early sign of this in Maine. So Maine is a weird state in that it has a thing called the people's veto. That is when the legislature passes a law, the voters of the state can sign a petition, say they want to vote in favor of the law or to reject the law. And when they do that, the law comes up for a popular vote. And that's what happened in 2009. The Maine legislature legalized same-sex marriage in the state, but opponents got together in a people's veto, and as you can see down the bottom, the same-sex marriage ban passed 53 to 47, so the law was repealed. On the map here, the yellow counties went opposed same-sex marriage. The green counties supported it, and you can see a couple of things. The first is that the only counties that supported were hovering right along the coast. These tend to be the wealthier, the better educated counties. Lots of very heavy opposition inland, and some of these more middle class counties in mid-coast Maine also voted no. By 2012, by contrast, support for same-sex marriage has increased only in 3 years in the state. They have to do another referendum to get it passed. And if you compare the 2009 to 2012 versions, what you'll see is that in every county that favored same-sex marriage in 2009, they still do in 2012, but you'll notice that it's darker. That is, the margin is even heavier in favor. Among the counties that oppose, a handful of them actually flip and vote in favor of same-sex marriage in 2012. And then these rural counties, they don't change their minds, but in all of them, you see a kind of lighter shade of yellow, so the margin is closer. So everywhere in the state, the same-sex marriage movement is doing better, and that reflects a broader move in society. In 2013, the legal challenge to DOMA, remember the law that we saw in the Clinton administration that said that the federal government would only recognize opposite-sex marriages, that marriages between same-sex couples, even if legal in the state, would not be recognized by the federal government. That law is challenged, and by a 5-4 vote in this decision called Windsor versus United States, Justice Kennedy, who wrote all of the major gay rights opinions in U.S. history, strikes it down in this very, very strong language, saying that the principal purpose of the law was to impose inequality. And then this really interesting passage, the plaintiff in Windsor was an elderly woman whose wife had passed away a couple of years previously, and because her marriage wasn't recognized, she had to pay a tax, an inheritance tax, on her wife's share of their common estate. But she and her wife didn't have any kids. Nonetheless, Kennedy goes out of his way to emphasize the importance of marriage for gay and lesbian couples as a way of helping any children that they're raising. And that seems, and it's clearly what Kennedy was doing here, to tee the issue up for state challenges. This only dealt with the federal definition, but to state challenges, challenges in federal court of state bans on same-sex marriage. And in the months after the Windsor decision, gay and lesbian couples all over the country, in every state that doesn't still permit gays and lesbians to marry, challenge the marriage bans by citing the language from Windsor. They are, as you can see here, reflecting an increasingly popular position. A majority of Americans favor same-sex marriage. By 2013, it's becoming more common, so people know gay and lesbian couples. And a number of states have legalized it. All the states that are in green have legalized same-sex marriage by the time that DOMA is struck down. And these are democratic states that let gays and lesbians marry, along with Iowa, which had done it by a Supreme Court decision. But nonetheless, a significant chunk of the country has same-sex marriage by 2013, and there are challenges to the marriage ban in every single one of these remaining states. The key turning point here comes in all places. Utah, a state that you don't usually think of as a harbinger of gay rights. Mormon state. The Mormon Church does not recognize same-sex marriage. The the gay rights groups don't want to have anything to do with Utah. They think they can't win in the state. Three gay and lesbian couples get together with a local group. They challenge the marriage ban. And just before Christmas 2013, the judge in the case sides with the gay and lesbian couples. Normally, when there's an important constitutional decision, we see this now with a lot of the Trump decisions, the lower courts issue what's called a stay. That is, they've issued their ruling, but they say the ruling won't take effect until the losing party has a chance to appeal to the appeals court, or maybe eventually to the Supreme Court. But the Utah Attorney General's office was so confident that they were going to win and so poorly staffed on this issue that they never asked the judge for the stay. The judge decided, if you didn't ask, I'm not going to give it to you. And the result, as soon as the opinion came down, gay and lesbian couples were eligible to marry. The decision came down on a Friday. This photograph is from the Salt Lake City County building on the following Monday, where you have hundreds of these gay and lesbian couples who are rushing to the building because they're worried that a higher court will eventually impose a stay. And there is a stay imposed, but it takes 3 weeks. The Utah Attorney General was not the savviest group in the world. And in the meantime, more than 1,000 couples marry. And you get these sort of images. These images make it hard to portray gay and lesbian couples as outliers in society or outliers among the U.S. And so it's a significant turning point in public opinion, caused again by the incompetence of the Attorney General's office. Eventually, these cases are challenged in 3 parts of the country: in the 10th Circuit, which is the Rocky Mountain area; in the 9th Circuit, which is 4 parts of the country: 9th Circuit, which is the Pacific Coast; the 7th Circuit, which is Wisconsin, Illinois, and Indiana; and the 4th Circuit, which is the Mid-Atlantic states. All 4 of these appeals courts rule in favor of the gay and lesbian challengers. They said the marriage bans are unconstitutional. They are appealed to the Supreme Court, and in this incredibly surprising decision in October of 2014, the court announces it's not going to hear the cases at all. And when the court does that, the lower court rulings immediately become effective. So all of a sudden now, in all of these red states, gay and lesbian couples can marry. Eventually, the issue does make it to the Supreme Court because one circuit, the 6th Circuit, which is Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee, votes to uphold the marriage bans. And that decision, which is called Obergefell versus Hodges, which is decided in 2015 by a 5-4 vote, with Justice Kennedy writing the opinion, says that state bans on same-sex marriage are unconstitutional. This decision was basically inevitable in the aftermath of Windsor. It's the same 5 justices that voted in favor of the Windsor decision vote in favor of this one. So the story here is that gay rights becomes more popular during Obama's second term, although precisely what Obama has to do with this is not clear. By contrast, immigration reform becomes much less popular. After the 2012 election, the Republicans put together a so-called autopsy committee. They want to know what went wrong. It's called the Growth and Opportunity Project. And one of the things they conclude is that the Republican Party was too associated with anti-Hispanic rhetoric, and that as a result, the party needed to support bipartisan immigration reform, basically as a way of putting this issue aside. And four Republicans, led by Lindsey Graham, but also including Marco Rubio, get together with four Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer, to come up with an immigration reform package. And at that point, the Republican base revolts, as had occurred in the Bush years, but much more strongly here. And basically, their argument is these senators are not representing us. If they don't back down, we're going to challenge them in primaries. This is the beginnings, ironically, of what will become the Trump 2016 campaign, and the immigration reform package largely collapses. And as a result, Obama issues more executive action, which in turn polarizes the issue even more. Republicans say that Obama is exceeding his authority by doing things that he can't get through Congress. So while same-sex marriage and gay rights in general becomes more solidly supported during this period, immigration reform actually becomes more controversial and harder to achieve. Obama has other problems in his second term. This contractor named Edward Snowden, contractor for a private company working for the NSA, steals hundreds of thousands of NSA files, leaks them to a number of journalists, including Glenn Greenwald, who then writes for The Guardian. He then goes out, flees the country to escape prosecution, claims that he wants to settle in Ecuador. And decides that he's going to reach Ecuador by via China and Russia. You don't need to be a geography expert. He was based in Hawaii to know that the fastest way from Hawaii to Ecuador is not via China and Russia. He winds up essentially defecting to Russia, where he still lives. But the Snowden revelations are very damaging to Obama and really hurt him among the left because they do reveal abuses of the NSA spying program, and there's this sense among liberals, especially young liberals, a disillusionment in Obama. And then the healthcare revelation is a disaster. In 2014, the law finally goes into effect. People can go onto the web. They can sign up for the healthcare law. Sign up at the website. The website, which they had had 4 years to build, crashes immediately, and it's an extremely embarrassing event. And at the same time, PolitiFact, this kind of fact-checking site, gives Obama a statement that if you like your healthcare, you can keep it, the lie of the year. And so there's this sense that Obama, who had run on competence and integrity, is instead overseeing incompetence and lying in what was his signature domestic issue. The healthcare law remains very unpopular throughout Obama's time in office. Ironically, these figures have flipped in the last 2 years. It's now more popular than unpopular, but that's not the case at the time. So we have immigration reform coming asunder. We have the Snowden revelations. We have the healthcare law fiasco. We have a foreign policy performance that is not particularly impressive. Obama largely stands aside during the Syrian genocide. He's rather weak with regards to Putin. His support for his performance in foreign policy goes down, and the result in the 2014 midterm elections, especially in the Senate, is the Democrats just get creamed. They have a bad luck here in that many of these states that are up are red states where there were strong Democratic incumbents who had represented these states in many cases for many years before things had become so polarized. But not only do Democrats lose in these states, they lose in some instances by 15, 20 points. There's a real backlash against the Democrats, which basically, for all practical purposes, ends the Obama presidency. His last 2 years in office, he does very little, and the country starts to gear up for the 2016 campaign, when Democrats confidently expect that a Clinton victory will allow for effectively an Obama third term and ensure the accomplishments that Obama was unable to execute because of these political setbacks. So that's what we'll look at in the next snippet, and hope everyone as well.